The name of her speech is The Power of Trust. Please help me to welcome Sylvia Lane.
Well, good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this because I have been working on it actually for several years. Recently, it came to my attention that whether I am working with a couple that's having issues with each other, or whether I am working as a consultant to a coaching firm that's trying to help people come together and work as a group of partners, the key issue is still about trust. Then I began to notice that just in the world at large today, we have these continuing issues of trust. People are saying we can't trust the government. We can't trust what's going on in the world. We wonder if people are telling us the truth or if they're just creating some kind of spin to manipulate how we feel and how we will vote. And so these trust issues are just showing up everywhere. But underneath it all, we are at a time of change. I really feel that in the long run, this change is going to be positive rather than something that we all end up, floating out into the ocean. People are saying California is going to break off with some huge earthquake and we're going to all float out into the Pacific somewhere. I really don't believe that. I think that as we move into new times, we go through periods of change, and change is unsettling and change is difficult for all of us. But the key to any relationship, whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship, is the establishment of trust. So what I'm going to talk about a little is how do we go about doing that? How do we do the beginning stages of developing trust with another person? First of all, we need to deal with honesty. How do we present ourselves to the other person, to the group that we are dealing with at large? How honest are we with ourselves even before we are dealing with other people? Second, are we willing to demonstrate respect when we are dealing with the other person? I feel that the real basic skill in communication, first of all, is listening. Are we really willing to stop and pay attention? Are we willing to listen without judgment so that the other person really feels that we are hearing them and not necessarily through our own filters? Then are we willing to be consistent in our behavior? After we establish how we feel, how we think, are we willing to show this in the way we treat another person and in the way we follow through on our agreements with them? The next thing is creating transparency. How clear are we willing to be? How honest are we willing to be about ourselves? Generally, if we are willing to be clear ourselves, then other people are willing to be clear with us. So keep in mind that as we look at issues of trust, you can look through psychological material in terms of, say, marriage and family counseling, and they will talk about how, for instance, couples are dealing with each other. I recently was working with a couple, and they had been together for like 30 years, and all of a sudden things just seemed strange or uncomfortable to the wife, And so what did she do? She went and looked at her husband's telephone. So now in this age of high technology, communications are just widespread everywhere. So she looked into his telephone, and what did she find? She was not the only woman in his life. And so, as Warren Buffett said once, it may take you 20 years to establish your reputation, but it can fall apart in 5 minutes. And this is essentially what took place. People who had been feeling a sense of trust with each other for a very long time, all of a sudden had their whole world kind of shattered. And so then the next step is about how do you restore trust once it is damaged? What do you do to make those changes take place? And that actually is going to be my next talk in 2 weeks. What kinds of things do we do to make trust come about and even be stronger in a relationship? I think the other thing that we now have to be aware of is that a lot of what we learn to trust that really makes a difference in our lives is not necessarily based in knowledge and fact, but a lot of it is based in our own intuition. And so my suggestion to you is to be willing to embrace uncertainty. And if you remember from the Indiana Jones film, at one point, he really had to step off into the abyss to really have a sense of feeling that I need to go from here to there, and it looks like nothing is in between. And as soon as he steps out, though, it's as though a floor lifts up underneath him. And I think sometimes we have this happen in our own lives. We are feeling something, we are thinking something, we're wanting to move from one point to another, and we have to learn to trust ourselves, to trust our intuition, and to step out into the void and really expect that we will be supported. Thank you.